I leveled from 99 to 100 in exactly 39 maps, and this is the third level 100 I've leveled in this league, and probably not going to be the last. So, I thought I would just kind of talk about some of the changes I've made to the strategy I'm using for leveling post-campaign. But before I do, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, so I've talked about this a bit before. I think it was over a month ago, and the strategy that I'm using has definitely changed somewhat. So I kind of just want to go over sort of the core concept, the stuff that's stayed the same, talk a bit about what's changed and kind of what I'm doing to really speed up the leveling process. Like I said, I did that 99 to 100 in 39 maps. It was a little under 2 hours. I think it was somewhere between like an hour and 45 minutes and an hour and 55. I sat down to watch a couple episodes of 3 Body Problem, and I figured I queued up like 3 or 4 of them or something. I figured it would probably take all that time, and then by the time I was 100, I hadn't even finished 2 full episodes. I also didn't use any Untainted Allflame Embers in that time either, so I was sitting a little bit under 200 million XP per hour, but very close, like 195 million XP per hour throughout the process, and never really had any sort of like slowdowns or any, it didn't falter at any point. It stayed very fast and steady. So the thing that you're using to kind of tie all of this together, make this all work, is this Scarab right here, Domination Scarab of Teachings. It makes it so that you get a 30% increased XP bonus for having a shrine buff, but it's not one bonus and then you're done. It's for every shrine buff. So you want to stack up a ton of shrines, and if you're able to have, if you have 5 shrine buffs, that'll be 150% increased XP. If you have 8 shrine buffs, it'll be 240. You get the idea. Now, one little note I want to include here is that the Gull, this item right here, which gives you a pretty nice amount of life and cold res, and more importantly, gives you 50% increased duration of shrine effects and also increased effect of the shrine buffs. The increased effect won't increase the amount of XP you get, but the increased duration will make them last longer on you, so the Gull is kind of nice. However, this first line here, trigger level 1, create lesser shrine when you kill an enemy, those lesser shrines won't do anything, and also the lesser shrines that you can sometimes get from Lantern of Aramor packs, killing the pack gives you a lesser shrine, those also won't give you the XP buff. So just something to be aware of. You don't want to actually interact with those lesser shrines at all if you can help it throughout the process, because you don't want to accidentally overwrite any buffs that you already have. But the Gull can be useful just simply because you're going to have a lot of shrine buffs, so it'll make you stronger, and also it will actually make the buffs last longer, so you'll have over 2 minutes to make use of those shrine buffs instead of like 90 seconds or so. So you want to have a lot of shrines, but then you also want to have a bunch of guys to blast, to kill and get that XP from them. And so what I've done here, I think kind of a commonly accepted approach, is to run Breach, which I do not have in my current Atlas tree. I do have a tree pulled up for it though. So I played around with Breach initially when I came up with the strategy, and I didn't love it for Toxic Rain Pathfinder. I didn't really love it for Forbidden Right Pathfinder either, like any sort of damage over time build or builds that are kind of just not that fast moving. Melee builds, stuff that's a little constrained, doesn't really do that well with Breach. But this build absolutely clobbered Breach, as you can see, teleporting all over the place. It was super easy to deal with Breach. I actually used, if you are playing the Mjolnir Hierophant build, I actually use this setup, the Lightning Conduit of the Heavens, which doesn't like visually represent very well when you're in the hideout what it's doing, but if I just run into like just anywhere with monsters, you'll be able to see very easily that like I was basically hitting everything with spell damage from the edge of the screen. That is sort of the core concept. You're really just trying to get a bunch of shrine buffs on yourself so you get that massive XP bonus, and then go around killing a bunch of monsters as quickly as you can. And that really is the crucial thing here, because I've played around with a lot of different league mechanics. I played around with doing Harbinger instead. I tried Abyss. I tried Ambush. I tried combining Breach and some of those other strategies, and nothing really was as fast as just doing Breach, which I have pulled up here. And I have a very like utilitarian Breach setup here. We have heavy breach, so we can get more guys out of our breaches. There were some times where I actually found, with this build in particular, I actually found that I wanted flash breach to actually make it move faster. Because the goal really is you have 90 seconds from the time you click a shrine until that shrine buff falls off. So you really want to get all of the monsters killed in that span of time. And, sometimes you will click a shrine and you will get the same buff that you already have. It'll refresh, and so that's not a new shrine buff. That'll kind of be a little bit of waste. It happens, and that's why it's not necessarily beneficial to just stack infinite shrines. You know, you don't necessarily want like 12 shrines in every map. You know, you do want to spend some of your Scarab budget on putting monsters into the map. But generally speaking, I'm not going for like currency making stuff here. Like, I'm not coming up and taking Chayula, and I'm not taking like all of the stuff that makes the breaches more profitable currency wise. You can do that. I'm really opting more to get stuff in the Atlas passive tree that makes it go faster. I'm taking all the nodes required to force Nico into every single map. We have 96% chance for maps to contain Nico, and since you already have a base 8% chance, that's 100% chance. You combine that with Packed with Energy, and now you have 45% move speed and 105% increased damage, and also a little bit of extra max LE res too, so you should be able to clear through everything faster, move faster, be a little tankier. And obviously, since, you know, it is a shrine setup, we're taking every single possible shrine node, so we're getting an extra shrine from Supplication, we're getting 2 shrine buffs from every time we click a shrine buff thanks to Syncretism. They're also stronger because of that. We're getting extra monsters to kill thanks to Drawn to Power, which is nice. And then because of these small passives on the way to the All That Glitters shrine, which is good to have this in there, even though it makes you less tanky, it is yet another type of shrine buff to have, so less overriding, which is still a positive. So you do still want to take All That Glitters. And then there are these 2 small nodes as well. So you get these all combined to be 100% chance to contain an additional shrine. And then you also have Supplication giving you a shrine. So you have a baseline of 2 shrines. And then the Scarab setup that I've been playing around with has been, of course, 1 Domination Scarab of Teachings. You got to have it. And then I've been playing around with 1 Domination Scarab to get 2 more shrines, and a Domination Scarab of Abnormality to get an Unusual Shrine. The Unusual Shrine options are Resonating Shrine, which basically just gives you like random power, frenzy, endurance charges. Not really that's like useful, but again, it is a different type of shrine buff. So like, you're never going to get any sort of overlapping with other existing shrine buffs, so it is useful, even though it's only 1 shrine. And then the alternative is Gloom Shrine, which makes you cause enemies to explode for like their like a massive amount of damage. It just massively increases your clear. And again, also it's a unique shrine, so like definitely I think it's worth it to have Domination Scarab of Abnormality 100%. Then you kind of have 2 options. You can take 2 Breach Scarabs. I know some people will do this. If you're playing a build that's like, I don't know, Tornado Shot or Lightning Arrow or something that can totally off-screen clear really easily, then I think that doing that is maybe the right idea. Now, if we look at the Atlas passive tree here, we have a 104% chance for our maps to contain breaches, so we're going to have a breach in every map. So with the Scarabs, we're going to go from, you know, 1 breach to 3 breaches guaranteed. And then there is a decent chance because of a couple of blocks here and the fact that we're a little bit over 100%, and there's a baseline 8% chance. And also this node right here, Eve of Invasion, which gives you about, it's averages around to like a 30% chance for an extra breach. It's not really exactly like that. It's more like, you know, sometimes you'll have an insane amount of breaches and sometimes you'll have, you know, 1 or 2 more. But in general, you're gonna have about 3 to 4 breaches in every map every time if you're running 1 breach Scarab, and, you know, 5 or 6 if you're running 2 breach Scarabs. So I played around with this. I didn't really love running 2 breach Scarabs, just simply because I found that by the time I was getting around to the 4th and 5th and 6th breach potentially, some of those Domination Shrine buffs were falling off, and I was spending, you know, over 3 minutes in each map when playing around with this. And ultimately it just kind of turned into like I would maybe have 1 or 2, maybe even 0 shrine buffs left by the time I was cleaning up the end of the breaches. And, you know, that kind of undermines the whole premise of doing this like as quickly as possible. You really are trying to get in there with shrine buffs up for the whole process. You don't necessarily have to go around and get every single shrine that's in the entire map, but it is a good idea to at least get like, you know, 4 or 5 shrines before you touch your first breach, and then kind of clear your way through the map. Keep slapping all the breaches down, and, you know, if you run into any shrines that are along the way, you can click those. Maybe you refresh your buffs, maybe you get new ones, and try to maintain somewhere in the range of like 6 to 10 shrine buffs throughout the process of clearing all the breaches. So you're getting, you know, double or triple XP the whole time instead of just regular amounts of XP for clearing breaches. So because of that, I really like to use a Domination Scarab and a Domination Scarab of Abnormality, along with the obvious mandatory Domination Scarab of Teachings, and then a Breach Scarab. I did play around with Scarabs of Hunted Traders in there instead of one of the Domination Scarabs, and I just found that they added fewer guys than Breach Scarabs if you have all the Breach passives, so I really wasn't that impressed by them in this particular setup. Now, there are a couple of other things you can use to really add some extra juice into this and potentially go from like leveling from 99 to 100 in, you know, like an hour and 45 minutes down to maybe like an hour and 15, depending on how liberal you are with these things. And that would be Allflame Embers of Untainted, Maws, Apes. There are like 5 different monster types. Basically, they are all Allflame Ember of Untainted, and then whatever the name of the monster type is. Now, those guys won't give you any items, but they do give massively increased XP, like 500% increased XP. And, you know, something that we take in the Atlas passive tree here is we are still coming down and taking the increased effect of devoted modifiers. These have not been updated in PoE Planner or some of the online tools, but you know, I still have them in this. It's increased effect of devoted modifiers, and so sometimes you will run into monsters that Lantern of Aramor buffs. It'll give like increased XP or increased XP for the strongest monster in a pack, and those are immensely valuable. Those are going to really rocket your XP up, and so if you're able to overlap these Untainted Allflame Embers onto those, that has a multiplicative effect, and you can be suddenly going from like 180 million XP per hour from 99 to 100, which is great, to like 240, 250 million XP per hour for a map or two in a row. Also, one way to look at the actual XP that you're getting per hour, you can mouse over your XP bar and that'll show up if you're not already level 100. But one thing you can do is you can /reset_ XP, and that will reset your XP per hour calculation. You can use this in case you die, or maybe you have to go AFK for a little bit or whatever, and you just don't want that to be skewed by, you know, again, that death or that like AFK or whatever. You're trying to really dial it in, and that is kind of how I figured out what I found to be the best in terms of total XP per hours. I do like 3 maps, kind of compare 3 maps and compare, and if that was really what made me go like, oh, you know, Harbingers felt like they were good, and then in actually looking at the amount of XP, I felt like I was just getting 40% less than I was from some other strategies, it turns out. So not so great in the end. Now, you can also use Omens to help with leveling up, and this is a strategy that I've actually used even starting at like level 72, because my preferred map for this, for anything Breach related, is going to be Dunes. And obviously you can get tier 16 Dunes, you know, you can get tier 16 anything, but you can also get like tier 2 Dunes. That is the passive, the base level for it. If you take out all your Watchstones, Dunes is a level 2 map this league. So once I've killed Kitava and I'm kind of ready to start leveling a character up, I just immediately start doing this strategy with Breach Scarabs, Domination, Abnormality, and Teachings. I just throw in like, you know, Alk and Go Dunes maps and run this strategy, and I will go from, I mean, I went from level 74 to 79 or 80 in a single map, and I didn't even remember to use an Omen of Brilliance for that. If I had, I probably would have gone from like 74 to 82 or 83. And yeah, you know, these are really good for just like the first couple of maps that you do once you start doing this strategy after you've killed Kitava. And you will absolutely blaze through getting up to into the 90s very, very quickly with just a couple of these on hand. And I think these are quite cheap. Yeah, okay, 5 chaos probably to get a couple of these. Very, very easy to get your hands on them. Now, the other Omen that I think is super valuable is the Omen of Amelioration. These I would only use if you're like level 98 or 99 and you're pushing the rest of the way to get to 99 or 100. These will make it so that if you die, instead of losing a full 10% of your XP bar, you'll only lose 2.5%. Now, bear in mind, you can only consume 1 Omen in each combat area, so given the way that you want to stack up shrine buffs and clear through the map super fast anyway, you know, kind of a 2.5 minutes or less type of drill. You know, if you die in an area, not only will you no longer have the protection of an Omen of Amelioration, you're also going to have lost all your shrine buffs, so you're probably better off just running another map, because all of these Scarabs are very cheap. Like, the most expensive one here is the Domination Scarab of Teachings, and they go for 2 to 3 chaos, maybe, if you're buying them with chaos. If you're buying them with divines, I've bought 80 of them for a single divine, 75 of them for a single divine, so they are pretty cheap in bulk. They're actually cheaper in bulk than they are in small supply, which is very interesting. As for all the other Scarabs, they're all 1 chaos. They're super cheapo. So that is another really nice thing about this strategy. It's very cheap to get up and running. And, you know, it's not just that it's never been like easier or faster to level to 100. It's also never been this cheap before. And that's really great. Like I said, I'm definitely going to continue leveling more characters to 100. I already have 3 this league, and I'm probably going to do a 4th. Now, as for the map that you want to run, I did say dunes, and the only real thing I would say to beware of when it comes to the map is you can do corrupted 8 mod maps. You know, you don't want to do anything that'll kill you, but something you do want to watch out for is this modifier right here. Buffs on players expire faster, all the way down at the bottom. That will make shrine buffs expire faster, which will then make it so that instead of having that 90-second window to clear through the map, you only have, you know, depending on how much map mod effect you have, you might only have like 35, 45 seconds to clear through the map with those buffs before they fall off. So it really will interfere with your ability to like level super quickly. So you do actually want to pay attention to that one modifier being on the maps, in addition to whatever else might brick your build. And that's actually basically all there is to this strategy. I did come up with another version of this though for people who don't like breach, which includes myself. Maybe you're playing a build, which I have been recently, dual strike juggernaut, you know, a build that doesn't handle breach very well. It's not super, doesn't have long range, you know, it's able to clear stuff that's super close, but for doing breach, it really isn't all that great. And so I came up with this strategy as well. It's very related to the previous version of doing this. And instead of doing dunes, I prefer to do Atoll because it is like very much an area full of hallways. But Atoll has the very specific distinction of all of the shrines basically spawning right at the start of the map. And so instead of running breach, we just don't run breach. I tried playing around with trying to like find another league mechanic that would be as good. Harbinger, ambush, abyss, and nothing really like measured up to just simply stacking the same set of domination scarabs and then 1 scarab of hunted traders, just having as many guys as you can, like all, you know, tightly stacked up throughout the Atoll map, and then just basically jumping in, getting like 4 or 5 shrine buffs right off the bat, and then just running around clearing through the entire map as quickly as you can and trying to be in and out in about 2 minutes. Now, much to my surprise, you know, I did figure this would be worse than breach, but for that particular build, and I think also for like Toxic Rain and for Forbidden Rite, builds that are a little bit more constrained, that don't have the ability to off screen, I actually think it was fairly competitive with breach. And again, as somebody who doesn't really love breach, I found it more enjoyable. I will put links to PoE planners for both of these, and they'll be clearly labeled. One is Breach Atlas and the other is non-Breach Atlas. Now, I think Breach is probably better for builds that are, you know, more suited to it, which is the majority of builds. But for this, you know, if you're not suited to Breach or you just don't like it, I think this is a really good alternative. And there's not a huge difference in the, like, tree, really. You know, we're taking some blocker nodes to make our scarabs be a little bit more desirable. We're also taking this top hat up here over the top of Eater of Worlds. So these all give increased pack size on those Eater of Worlds packs. So instead of 20% Eater of Worlds pack size, we're getting 40%. And then that's pretty much all that we're really doing. I did come down here and take guarded hordes to have all of the sulfite nodes in the map be guarded by an extra pack of sulfite monsters. Just, you know, like 3 extra packs of monsters in every map. Not really all that much going on there. And one final thing before I forget to mention it, the map device, I am always using domination. You know, that's 3 extra shrines on top of the 2 that you get for your map. And then, you know, an extra one from the Scarab of Abnormality and 2 from the regular domination scarab for a total of 8. Yeah, 3 from these 2, 3 from this one, and 2 from your Atlas passive. So 8 scarabs or 8 shrines in every map. Domination Scarab of Teachings giving you 30% increased XP from every single one of those buffs. And either Hunted Traders if you're not doing the Breach setup, or Breach Monsters if you are, giving you tons and tons of XP throughout the process. Alright, I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching, and have fun leveling another character. Bye!